So I received a response back to a music library that I reached out to last November, and it inspired me to make a video where I show you. I thought what I would do is show you the template that I use when I connect with new music libraries. I'll show you the response I got, and I'll sort of show you my approach to connecting with new music libraries. So this was a response that I received today. So today is Thursday, February 13th. This is to a music library called Wonder Sync Sounds. I sent the original email to them. I believe it was in November. It was November 16th. So it took about 3 months for them to get back to me. So for the last year or so, I've been submitting to quite a few new music libraries. I'm with one sort of main exclusive publisher. So most of my placements over the last 10 or so years have been from one specific publishing company that I work with on an exclusive basis. But over the last year, I would say the last year in particular, I've been sort of ramping up my non-exclusive music libraries, and I've got accepted into probably about a dozen or so new music libraries since I started doing this. So I thought I would show you the template that I use. This is the exact email that I've used for the vast majority of my submissions. I've maybe varied it a little bit here and there, but for the most part, this is exactly what I've said. And the response rate has been pretty good. And I'll show you, after I show you this email, I'll show you a list of all the libraries I submitted to and which ones accepted me. So this is the template that I use. So I say hi there. If I know the specific name, I will address them by their specific name. But in this case, I didn't. So I just said, hi there. My name is Aaron Davison. So I'm just introducing myself. I'm a Berklee alumnus and singer, songwriter, guitarist. So I mentioned that I study music at Berklee just to establish a little bit of credibility. I'm not sure if it makes a big difference, but I like to mention that in my introductory email. I go on to say I've been licensing my music for several years in shows and films like The Young and the Restless, All My Children, The Middle, Fox Sports, ABC News, Mary Poppins, The Herd, and many more. So I highlight some of the recent placements I've had over the last few years. I don't mention them all, but I highlight some of the significant ones. This is really important to do, and a lot of writers, for whatever reason, don't do this, but I think this is absolutely critical. If you have credits, if you've already licensed your music a little bit, by all means, mention it when you're connecting and reaching out to new music libraries. It demonstrates that your music is licensable. It kind of, says all the right things about your music. Obviously, if you're completely new to licensing and you don't have any credits, this doesn't really apply. There's nothing really to mention in terms of licensing. But if you do, by all means, mention it in your introductory email. I go on to say I'm submitting several recently finished tracks to give you an idea of my sound and style. I'm happy to submit more if you'd like, or conversely, if there's anything specific stylistically you are in need of, please let me know and I'll submit anything relevant I have in my catalog if applicable. So I mention that because 9 out of 10 times when you're reaching out to a new library that you don't have any history with, you don't typically know what they're working on. You don't really know what their needs are. So a question I get all the time is, well, 2 questions really. How many tracks should you submit initially? And what kinds of tracks should you submit? So I typically, in this email, there are 5 tracks. So these are 5 fairly new tracks. I think 3 to 5 is a good number to start with initially, unless, and I always preface this by saying, unless there are specific submission guidelines. So oftentimes libraries will tell you, they might say, for example, just to submit 3 of your best tracks, or just to submit 5, whatever the number is. So if they tell you specifically how many tracks to submit, obviously adhere to those guidelines. But if they don't, I think a good rule of thumb is somewhere between 3 and 5. So in the typical email, I'm sending around 5 of my best, typically newer tracks, so sort of recent tracks that I've been working on. So in this case, there are 5. The first 3 are pretty mellow, sort of singer-songwriter, I guess, mid-tempo songs. The fourth song, The Road I Travel, is more of a folksy, kind of a folk song. The last song, Another Way, is a rock, kind of an upbeat rock blues track. So I go on to say you can hear more tracks and learn more about me here, and then I link to my website. So if they do happen to click through to my website, they will see very quickly a lot of the different placements I've had, logos for different places my music has been used. And then if they want to click through to the music page, there is a link to all of my Spotify releases and then the Spotify player and then several different singles that I have on Spotify as well. So that is the template that I've been using for the last year or so. And like I said, it's been working pretty well. So this is the response I got back today. This is from a company called WonderSync Sounds. To be honest, I don't know a lot about this specific company. I'll probably go and research them a little more before I send my music. But this was the response. Hi, Aaron. Thanks for reaching out. I apologize for the delay as I've been restructuring WonderSync Sounds. Your music sounds great, and I would be happy to send you a non-exclusive publishing agreement. I'm primarily looking for music with lyrics at the moment, but instrumental songs are also good. Please feel free to submit any non-exclusive music along with your PRO IPI number, and I can get an agreement for you to review within a week or so. I look forward to hearing from you. Best, Andrew. So that was the response to me. I believe that I responded asking what the best way to submit music to them is, because for whatever reason, he didn't specify how to send tracks or what format. And this is sort of a little pet peeve of mine, is that you'll find in this industry that there are, and I don't quite know why this is, but oftentimes there is information left out of these emails. So for whatever reason, he's probably just busy and didn't think of it. So I responded to him and said, great, will do. What is the best way to send the tracks to you and what format? Because the last thing I want to do is send the wrong format or send via a medium that he doesn't like. So I wanted to clarify that first. As soon as I get a response back, actually, boom, just as I'm doing this, there's a response. So let's see what he said. MP3s are fine for previewing your music, and then I'd like to have waves on file. After I choose the songs, after he chooses the songs and I review the co-publishing agreement, feel free to send them however is convenient for you. I typically use Dropbox or Google Drive. Perfect. So I will, in this case, send MP3s, and I will use Dropbox because I don't use Google Drive typically. So that's the response I got. So what I'll do is I'll put together a collection of probably around 15 to 20 vocal tracks, since he told me that he is specifically looking for vocal tracks. Maybe I'll throw a few instrumentals in as well, but he said he's primarily looking for music with lyrics and vocals. So I will send a file over, and then based on which songs he accepts, he will send a contract, and then I'll sign it, and that will be that. So again, that was an email that I got today. And then what I thought I would show you is just a list. These are companies that I've submitted to probably over the last year or so. Some of these are dated starting back in last July. So typically what I do is I sort of go through phases where you'll see I made a number of submissions on 7/19, 7/21, 7/22, 7/22, and then there was a gap. August 6th, I started pitching again. August 6th, I sent to quite a few different libraries, and then there's a pretty large gap, a couple months, and then in November I kind of picked up and started pitching again. So typically what I will do is I will go through phases where I'll send out a dozen or 20 or 30 different emails, and then I'll wait. And then again, like in the case of this particular company, WonderSync Sounds, it took several months for me to hear back, and I find that that's pretty typical. 2 to 3 months is pretty typical. I rarely hear back right away. Sometimes you do, but usually it takes a month or 2 or 3 to get a response back. So a lot of these companies that I've submitted to in last December, last November, I still haven't heard back from probably at least half of these companies, maybe more. So maybe in a month or 2, I'll get accepted into more libraries. Some of them will probably pass. And then oftentimes you just don't hear anything back. So sometimes you just don't know, and you can hit them up again a few months down the road. So at the top of this list, there's probably, I don't know exactly how many companies, but there's quite a few. You can see there are probably a couple hundred or so companies that I pitched to. I'd have to go through and count them to be exact, but let's say there's a couple hundred. And at top, you can see that these are all the companies that I was accepted into. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So 14 companies, including this most recent one, WonderSync. So again, I don't know because I don't know the exact number of companies, but I'm guessing, sort of a guesstimate, is that it's somewhere around a 5 to 7% maybe acceptance rate. Is that good? I don't really know. I mean, I think everybody is going to have a different experience, but the really cool thing about licensing is that it doesn't take that many libraries for things to add up substantially, you know. And what you'll find, you know, this definitely takes time to sort of start seeing results, but usually what you'll find is 1 or 2 or 3 will really come through for you over time, and then other ones will sort of fade away. Not everyone you sign with is going to be able to place your music. So it's a little bit of a numbers game. And what I've found over the last, you know, year or so of doing this is I'm really just now starting to see results from this recent batch of libraries that I've signed with. And on my most recent statement, which was an international statement that I got about a week ago, I saw several new placements from one of the new companies. I think there were a couple on the statement before that on my domestic statement, but it takes time. Licensing is a long-term game, and it really, you know, you really have to build this up. But if you do this consistently enough, you'll start to see results. And that's the really encouraging thing, is when you get those statements and you start to see, I mean, usually it sort of trickles in. You'll see a couple placements here, and then on the next one, maybe a couple more, and it's something that you can build over time. But I hope this video was helpful. That is my approach to connecting and submitting my music to new music libraries. And you are welcome to use this template or something similar to it. And again, to sort of highlight the points you want to hit, introduce yourself, list any credits you have, tell them what you're sending, offer to send more, and then link to more where they can learn more information about you. And usually if you hit those key points, that's enough. Again, if there are specific submission guidelines, you know, check each company's website first prior to submitting, and if there are specific guidelines, adhere to those. Otherwise, that's it for this video. I hope this was helpful.